It's 900 hours Central African time on this Wednesday, 23rd of December 2015. It's 2 days to go before Christmas. This is Newsroom. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the first hour. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. You have to stay with us as we broadcast live from Auckland Park Studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Now, today we're asking you a question, and that relates to King Dalindyebo, who's expected to hand himself over to a correctional center this morning to begin his 12-year jail term. So we're asking you, should the king go to jail? That's our question to you. Let us know what's on your mind. Post your comments on our Twitter page at SABC Newsroom. But first, let's take a look at all your news headlines. Abatembu King Bulakaya Dalindyebo is expected to hand himself over to a correctional facility to begin his 12-year jail sentence. Nigeria plans to revive its struggling economy by increasing capital expenditure. And the International Organization for Migration says the number of migrant deaths has increased to shocking proportions this year. Those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Marumo Kakana what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, sir. I mean, this introduction, I must just put it out there that I didn't pay you for such a good introduction. But your countdown to Christmas, though,
yes.
You can't wait.
I can't wait.
Thanks a lot, Elvis. Let's now take a look at the stories making headlines in the world of sports. A leading official at the World Athletics Federation, Nick Davis, is to step aside while an ethics committee investigates emails he had sent regarding Russian doping ahead of the 2013 World Championships in Moscow, Russia. And Leicester City to finish at the top of the English Premier League table at Christmas for the first time in club's 131 year of existence. We'll have more on this and other stories making headlines in the world of sports in the next hour.
Thank you, Marumo. Our top story this hour. The Correctional Services in Eastern Cape says it does not know what time exactly will the Abatembu King, Bulakaya Dalindyebo, report at the Wellington Maximum Prison at Mthatha. The King is expected to start his 12-year sentence today after his final appeal to the Constitutional Court failed earlier this month. The King has also allegedly applied for a presidential pardon. This after the final appeal to the Constitutional Court failed, and the King was then found guilty in 2013 for crimes committed against his subjects in 1995 and 1996. These included arson, kidnapping, and defeating the ends of justice. The Justice Department has indicated that the King will be afforded no special treatment when he begins his sentence today and will be treated like all other inmates. Now we'll see if we can bring you a latest update from our reporter in the Eastern Cape in a short while, as soon as we got that link up and running. Meanwhile, the South African Police Service has re-employed at least 548 former police officers in an effort to bolster its fight against crime. There were 1,105 re-enlistment posts that needed to be filled, and more than 3,000 applications had been received from former police officers. Acting National Police Commissioner spoke to the SABC earlier this morning and asked him why the ex-police officers were brought back into the force.
There are people out there who are already trained, who are skilled, and who have got the competencies to make a difference in the environment. You obviously will appreciate that people leave for various reasons, and where, for example, they have got an interest to plow back, we will continue to open our doors to re-enlist their services.
Yeah. Now it's the end of the year. Money is flowing and police are on high alert. They foiled the suspected robbery at a Johannesburg mall. One suspect is in a critical condition after a shootout.
A suspicious-looking car Police gave chase but lost it. They spotted it again and a shootout ensued.
Started shooting at the officers, and the officers returned fire. So it was a shootout. It was a shootout that happened, and one of the suspects who was at the back of the Torah got shot at the back and was taken to hospital. Thank God some of my officers were not shot. The driver of the Torah was shot on the right arm, but he was treated.
The other two suspects were arrested. Firearms, including an AK-47 and 9mm pistol, were recovered. An eyewitness who's been working nearby for over 4 years says it's a crime-ridden area. He wasn't surprised to hear the gunshots ringing out, saying it happens almost daily.
Both of them are exchanging bullets. Then I have to dodge my head because I don't want to receive maybe any straight bullets.
This street vendor also witnessed the drama unfold.
I could hear a gunshot. Then a few seconds after that, I saw two cars chasing each other into my direction. The one being chased was pulled over to the side of the road, and then the two police officers disembarked from the other one, pointing guns and shouting orders.
Police say the car was stolen earlier this month. A stern warning for would-be perpetrators.
We have very hard-working young men that are very vigilant, that want to make a difference in the society that they serve and where they live.
Police visibility remains high in hotspots, especially shopping malls. Makikita Mtlabe, SABC News, Crownwood in Johannesburg.
FIFA presidential candidate Tokyo Sekwale has confirmed answering questions from the U.S. grand jury about an alleged 120 million rand payment made to the former vice president of FIFA, Jack Warner. Sekwale made it clear that he was not summoned as a suspect, but only because he was part of the 2010 World Cup organizing committee. The former Robben Island prisoner was questioned on December the 17th. Sekwale says he's not sure whether other South Africans have appeared or are still to appear before the U.S. justice officials.
They wanted to know information about them. I have none. And the people who wrote whatever letters will be the one to answer those things. But, we also heard about these things for the first time when they were published, because they had nothing to do with the local organizing committee, LOC. These were SAFA matters.
Further afield now, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari says his government plans to revive a struggling economy by tripling capital expenditure. Africa's biggest economy expects its budget deficit to double to 2.2 trillion naira in 2016.
Buhari told the parliament that Nigeria will borrow as much as 900 billion naira abroad to fund the deficit, which equals to 2.16% of GDP. Nigeria's economy has been hammered by a plunge in oil prices, which has weakened the naira. It's also delayed the payments of civil servants and forced companies to fire thousands of staff. Buhari highlighted that the West African nation expects revenues of around 3.9 trillion naira next year. 820 billion naira will come from key oil revenues. Another major focus will be the improvement of tax collection and non-oil industries such as agriculture and mining.
Our deficit will be financed by a combination of domestic borrowing of 984 billion naira and foreign borrowing of 900 billion naira, totaling 1.84 billion naira. Over the medium term, we expect to increase revenues and reduce overheads to bring the fiscal deficit down to 1.3% of GDP by 2018.
Despite the depressed oil prices, Buhari is adamant that Nigeria's economy will grow by 4.4% next year. He reiterated that the budget is based on an oil price of $38 a barrel. Oil production will be expected to be 2.2 million barrels a day.
We believe that this budget, while helping industry, commerce and investment to pick up, will, as a matter of urgency, address the immediate problems of youth unemployment and the terrible living conditions of the extremely poor and vulnerable Nigerians.
Buhari got elected in March on a campaign to root out graft and mismanagement, which have left most people in poverty. Meanwhile, the central bank governor sent a strong warning that the economy might slip into recession unless a stimulus is brought underway.
The number of refugees and migrants arriving by land and sea in the European Union has passed 1 million this year. The International Organization for Migration says a further 3,600 people died or went missing. This is 3 to 4 times the number of people that arrived into Europe in 2014. Half of those arriving were Syrians fleeing the war. Another 20% were Afghans and 7% were Iraqis. IOM's Director General William Lacey Swing says that unless negotiations on Syria succeed in bringing peace and the European Union come together to propose solutions, allowing living conditions in Syria's neighboring countries to improve, Lacey Swing insisted that there wouldn't be a reason to see these numbers decrease in 2016.
We have just published the figures of passing the 1 million mark for the number of refugees and other migrants heading north into Europe, primarily out of Syria, but other areas also. And of that number, the death total is very close to 3,700, primarily in the Mediterranean, central Mediterranean, with many fewer in the Aegean and the land route in the Balkans. This is 3 to 4 times as many migrants coming north and refugees as we had in the year 2014. And the deaths have already far surpassed the deaths in last year.
Now that's some of your news for now. Let's take a look at some of the comments. The Democratic Alliance's Diana Collar-Barnett will be back in Parliament next year. This after Collar-Barnett was expelled from the party in October after pleading guilty to misconduct, bringing the party into disrepute and transgressing the DA's social media policy. Now let's take a look at what you are saying on social media. You can do so at SABC Newsroom. That is our Twitter handle. This one from Israel says the DA almost got my vote. But after this Collar-Barnett saga, I am so sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, no, says Israel. The best of nothing says, I've been looking for justification for Collar-Barnett's lightest sentence in vain, says the best or nothing. This one from Andre says, Collar-Barnett sharing a post is by far not the worst thing that has happened in South African politics in 2015. Get over it already. This one from Sibosiso says, why am I not surprised? Covert racism at its best. Hashtag Collar-Barnett, says Sibosiso. Ruby Kakana says, the Constitution says everyone has a freedom of speech. This is my Facebook. I share what I like. I support at RDA on at DKB20. Hashtag Collar-Barnett, says Ruby Kakana. Now, those are some of your comments. You can keep them coming right here on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. You can also do so via our Facebook page. Let's now take a look at our diary and look at what's happening around the country today. And we start off in Johannesburg, where the 3 suspects involved in a car hijacking and shootout in Crown Mines yesterday are expected to appear in court soon. The men face charges of vehicle theft and possession of illegal firearms and ammunition. Then in Port Elizabeth, the Abatembo King, Bolakaya Dalinyabo, is expected to hand himself over to a correctional centre to begin his 12-year jail term. And on a lighter note, in KwaZulu-Natal, President Jacob Zuma is hosting a Christmas party for the elderly in Chatsworth in Durban, just outside Durban there. Those are some of the top stories in the regions. Let's now take a break, and after this break, we'll be back with more, so you have to stay tuned here on Channel 404.
aka went overseas to win 2 awards for himself for Best South African Male Artist and a second one for his hit track All Eyes on Me. The Lamb film is nominated for Best Foreign category at the 2016 Oscars.
We couldn't find finance until the script won a very prestigious prize in France.
Dr. Pascal has inspired many in song and theatre presentation.
And in 1985, when I came, I went to the SABC on the radio, and I was the voice of Africa.
Catch Trends every Friday at 9 p.m.
Health Talk, your show on health practice.
The people being empowered with knowledge so that they can change their behavior and reduce their risk of being sick.
How serious is stress at work?
If we don't address workplace stress, that negative stress, then it can lead to burnout and it can lead to depression.
How does absentees affect companies?
The one that's really problematic for employers is the one that is unscheduled.
How can companies organize their wellness program?
Health promotion mustn't just be a one-size-fits-all type of approach. It must be customized based on understanding of the unique needs of that particular organization.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living with Dr. Sillo Mutawung on Health Talk every Saturday.
Welcome back. Now, the Abu Tembu King, King Dalinyebo, is expected to hand himself over to correctional services this morning in Mthatha. Now, to get more on the Abu Tembu King story, we crossed to our reporter Zimkita Mkingwane, who is outside the Wellington prison in Mthatha, where King Bulekaya Dalinyebo is expected to take the long walk to jail, which is to start his 12-year jail sentence. A very good morning to you, Zimkita, and welcome. And can you tell us, is there any sign of King Dalinyebo at the prison?
Good morning, Elvis, and welcome to the Eastern Cape and welcome to Wellington Prison. What you're seeing there is the rooftop office where prisoners are monitored by correctional services officials, all the events that they do inside the prison. Well, there's a lot of anticipation ahead of the King's expectance for him to surrender himself to this correctional facility between now and midnight today, as per the order that he was given when his application was dismissed at the Constitutional Court on the 2nd of December. We don't have the exact time of when he is expected to make his way here, but Justice Department has emphasized that he needs to surrender himself because today is the last day when he is expected to come here. What you're seeing behind me is the gate that he'll go through, and then after he makes his way into this gate, he will then make way into another big gate, and when these two gates are closed, he'll be taken to an office where he'll be assessed, and his profile as a prisoner and a prison number will be given to him, and then he'll be given a room or a cell where he'll spend his 12-year sentence. So a lot of expectations, and this prison is eagerly waiting to receive him.
Now, we heard a lot of rumors that the king might not get to jail today. What will happen if the king does not hand himself over to the Wellington Maximum Prison in Mthatha today?
There's been a couple of things that people have been saying, and the family as well. When we spoke to the family, they said the king has accepted that he has to come to prison today. However, a last-minute ditch to get him presidential pardon was made in the early hours of this morning as Contralesa in the province submitted a letter in the office of the presidency pleading with the president to give the king of Abu Tembu a pardon on his 12-year jail term. However, there has been no response from the presidency as yet if they have received that letter or not. But what the Justice Department has emphasizes that whether the application has been made or not, the bail condition stipulates that the king needs to surrender himself today because that has not been changed. Another organization calling themselves the Protection of the Constitution also submitted a letter to the Justice Department saying that the trial must be relooked because they must consider customary law when this trial, because they're saying while this trial went into court, that issue of customary law was not taken into consideration. So as per the instruction from the Justice Department, he is expected to come here whether they have made that application to the Office of the Presidency or not.
Now, Zimkita, just take us back and remind us, how did the king get to this point where he's about to serve jail and become a jailbird?
Well, in the early 90s, in fact, the king had a farm at Chalacha village where some villagers of that community had their livestock grazing at his farm, and some of the community of the victims of this crime were terrorizing members of that community. So members of the community went to lay a charge at the Bumbane Great Place, as it is done in any rural setup. They went to lay a charge that we are not happy because these people are terrorizing us, and another man who is the victim of this crime was accused of murdering a woman in the village. So those people, the king sent his subjects to go to Chalacha village and summon these people to come before the traditional court so that disciplinary action could be taken against them. However, they didn't hit that call. They didn't go to Bumbane Great Place. After they failed to submit themselves to Bumbane Great Place, then the king and his subjects went to Bumbane Great Place around 1995 and 96, where the victims were inflicted torture, their houses were torched, their children and women were abducted, and then they later laid a charge at Biki police station. The king was later released, and the matter was quiet for quite a long time, about 15 years. No one said anything about this case, and then it came back after 15 years, and now the king was sentenced to 15 years, including a charge of murder of Sazi Sowofa. However, when he appealed at the Supreme Court of Appeal, that charge of murder was then cut off, and then his sentence reduced from 15 years to 12 years. At the Concord, he didn't win. His sentence remained to 12 years, and now the order was given on the 2nd of December that after 14 days from that delivery of the order, he should come to Wellington Prison. And this is the day that everyone is waiting, whether he'll come and hand himself over. And if he doesn't, the Justice Department has said they will have to send police to come and apprehend him and bring him to this correctional center.
Was there any word from the Abatembu or the traditional healers on the matter up until now?
There are mixed reactions amongst Abatembu, especially on a number of issues. One of them is who is going to take the spear when he comes here. The king held a meeting in October where he announced that his firstborn, Azenati, will take the spear when he comes to prison. However, that is being disputed by the right-hand house, saying that Azenati is not the rightful heir because he was not born from a marriage that was chosen by the Abatembu nation. Customarily, Elvis, what usually happens is that the nation would choose a wife for a king and pay lobola for that wife that they've seen for the king. And then a firstborn born out of that wedlock will then be the heir of the family. But in Azenati's case, this is a wife that the king saw for himself and paid lobola on his own. And they are saying that he is not the legitimate king. However, they have not told us yet who they think should be the rightful heir. Who will take over. They say they will announce this on the 27th of this month. When you go to the family of King Wielekaya, Elvis, there are high emotions. You see the kids playing in the yard. They don't know what's happening. They haven't made sense of their father and their grandfather who will have to spend his first night at Wellington Prison today. But when you speak to adults, you sense the frustration, you sense the hurt, because they are saying they are counting down hours before he's expected to come here.
Was there any word from the Abatembu clan about the possibility that the king might have a replacement to go in his place to prison? And is that still maybe one of the options available?
I couldn't hear you properly, Elvis.
Just briefly, there was some rumblings a couple of months ago that the king might take a replacement for him to go to jail. Is that still one of the options open?
Yes, Azanati is the option for him to take the spear if he comes to prison. But as I've just mentioned, that is being disputed by the right-hand house. So we're still likely to see, and we're still not 100% sure, Elvis, if the king will also hit the call by the Justice Department to come to this prison, because some people are saying because he submitted his application for presidential pardon, then he will wait and see what the president will say. So we have until midnight today to see what's likely to happen, and then we'll take it from there.
Zimkita, you'll keep us updated. Thank you so much for that report. That was our reporter in the Eastern Cape, Zimkita Mankunana, giving us the latest there. And as you heard, the king might not. And if that doesn't happen, there's some consequences there. But we'll keep you posted. You don't want to go away. Stay here on Channel 404, your favorite channel of choice. This is Newsroom. Nature conservation representatives are expected to visit a Christiana farmer today who is accused of mistreating animals on his farm in the Northern Cape. Now, his neighbor says that he is keeping hundreds of game, but he does not feed them, and many have already died from hunger. Some organizations have already taken it upon themselves to feed the animals by throwing the fodder over the fence, as the owner of the farm refuses to open the gates. For more on the story, let's now cross live to our reporter Puleng Mudupi, who is in Christiana in the Northern Cape. A very good morning to you, Puleng. It seems like we've lost it there for a second. We're going to come back to that story, so stay tuned here on your favorite channel of choice. Let's take a look at some of your comments, what's happening here. Abatembu King Bulakaya Dalinyebo is expected to start his 12-year sentence today at the Wellington Maximum Prison in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape. And we're asking you that question, should the king go to jail? You can send us your comments on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. The first one here from Teresa. Why must the King Dalinyebo go to prison for the early 90s crime? But hashtag Oscar Pistorius kills an intruder through the door and he stays home. So says Teresa. This one from Tolani says, King Bulikaya Dalinyebo must stop this game of hide and seek. Probably seek and not sick. He has been found guilty of serious crimes and he must go to jail, says Tolani there. This one from Semi Tlapi says, Dalinyebo is due to start a new life tomorrow. That's today, actually. Will he hand himself over? Let's wait and see. But maybe you've got a point in terms of tomorrow, because if he does go to prison today, it will be a new day tomorrow. Brenda Wardle says, if the convicted person has exhausted all the remedies and the new evidence becomes available, the minister may be petitioned into S327. Hashtag Dalinyebo, says Brenda Wardle. Now, that's for some of your comments there. Let's take a look at Facebook and see what is going on there. Well, it seems like it is ready now. Statistics SA has apologized for giving wrong figures on people committing suicide in the country on an annual basis. Now, earlier figures indicated that nearly 500,000 South Africans committed suicide. Well, that's wrong figures there from Stats SA. You better check that out on our Facebook page. Then, in the Eastern Cape Court of Cooperative Governance, MEC Fikile Xasa will summon all traditional leaders in areas where deaths of initiates have occurred to account. Now, and we also see that the residents of Pungwani and Tlaveni villages outside Mulamalele in Limpopo have been left with dry taps for more than 2 weeks now. This comes after the Vembia District Municipality failed to fix a burst water pipe. All this information you can find on our Facebook page and SABC News website. Let's take a quick look at your newspapers around the globe, and we starting off in Europe. The Times reports that Afghan troops in the besieged town of Sangrin were fighting yesterday after a relief mission failed to break through Taliban lines as the extremists threatened to overrun the town. Christmas comes early for Brussels Day, it says. Now, and the New York International Times says that the Iraqi army has for the first time reached the inner government district of the ISIS-controlled city. A spokesperson predicted that Ramadi would be cleared of ISIS fighters within 72 hours. And finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that the Greek Parliament, as expected, became the latest European legislative body to recommend recognition of a Palestinian state, adopting the measure in a nearly unanimous show of support yesterday. Those are all your newspapers around the globe. We will take a short break and we'll be back right after that.
It's a favorite minister here. Yane, party is a very nice language because it was written by you, the people. Here's a good one. Try hard, an individual who tries against all odds. Hoy! Give me water!
Ryehards, keep cool with a case of Costa Light for $179.99 and help make party South Africa's 12th official language. Tops at Spa. Shake things up.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
It is festive season. Some people call it December, boss. And it is during this time of the year when people get together and celebrate with friends and loved ones. Most of the time when they celebrate, they do so by using fireworks. But do you know what is the correct way of using fireworks? Do you know what the dangers are associated with the use of fireworks? Well, if you don't know, we're going to tell you now. We are now joined by Nana Khadebe, City of Joburg's Emergency Services spokesperson. Nana, very good morning to you and welcome. Thank you for coming through.
Okay, thank you too.
Now, tell us, what are the city bylaws provision with regards to the use of fireworks in residential areas?
And for usage of fireworks, it has to be, the times are very specific. It has to be used between 2200 and 1 a.m. This is on the 31st, the day that we're heading, that when fireworks are used.
So 10 o'clock at night till 1 o'clock in the morning?
Till 1 o'clock in the morning. And the other thing is that we have to be very careful while using them because there are a number of things that we must consider. Like you have to be 500 meters away from a petrol station or a depot.
Now, the time schedule you've given us now is only for the 31st. What about Christmas Day or just before Christmas?
On Christmas Day, it's between 2200 and 12 o'clock. So it's just for 2 hours.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
But every year, I see people starting using fireworks around about 6 o'clock at night.
Definitely. We have seen that. That's why we're now going out to malls, doing mall campaigns, just to educate people on what they need to do while using fireworks.
How dangerous is fireworks?
They're very dangerous. Fortunately, we've not had any major incidents in the past 5 years. but we have had one child that was injured in their hands. The hands was actually, the fingers were blown away. So that's one incident that took us back to say that what is it that we need to do? So education was more important at the time, that we need to go back and educate our people.
Is there a correct way to use fireworks?
Yes, there is. They don't have to be in your hands. When you see kids, they always have them in their hands.
Yes.
The correct way is to put it down and light it up. So that whatever that would happen, it does not harm you directly.
Now, in the worst case scenario, what should friends and family do if someone is injured from using fireworks? Do they call you?
Definitely. The only thing that you'd need to do is to call us on 10177 and 112. Because when we say that use water or do this, we wouldn't know the nature of your injuries at the time. So calling us on 10177 and 112 would be very sufficient.
Wonderful. Now, if we look at this, what advice would you give to those who want to use those fireworks this time of the year?
Let's consider the pets. People have dogs, they have cats. That is one thing that most people would complain about, that their cats don't know where to go when there's fireworks. Let's also adhere to the times, between 2300 and 1 o'clock, because on the 31st, it's when that we have major fireworks. And those that want to do the large amounts of fireworks, they need to consult us to get a permit. We work hand in hand with SAPS and JMPD, and we'll be there to assist.
There are some people that suggest that fireworks should be banned completely. How possible is that? Because it is dangerous, number one, and number two, it's not good for your pets.
They are regarded as explosives, so it wouldn't be a bad idea, but we know that it will take such a long time. What we're doing now is to manage it and make sure that people are using them correctly.
Is there any fines imposed to anyone using fireworks in the times that's not that's prohibited, so to speak, or that cannot be used?
The fines ranges from 500 to 1,005, depending on the amount of fireworks that you have. But it's difficult also to follow up, because we work hand in hand with JMPD. When they see the police cars, they run away, so it's quite difficult to make sure that they don't use them at all.
Is fireworks legal, though? A number of people have been asking that particular question.
They are legal. What emergency services look at, it's the storage at wholesalers and retailers, how they store them and what amount they can sell. So they are legal. As long as you have the permit, we give out a permit, then SAPS Explosive will give you a license to sell them, and those that have them would tell you what amount you can sell to people.
Now, if somebody's got a problem, there's somebody using fireworks outside the time parameters after 1 o'clock, what do they do?
They can call us on 10177. We're working hand in hand with Johannesburg Metro Police, and SAPS would be able to assist.
10177.
And 112, yes.
That's the number there from Nana. Thank you so much for joining us here in studio.
Thank you.
That was Nana Khadebe from the City of Joburg's Emergency Services, talking to us about the dangers of fireworks. You know those dangers. Do not utilize them outside the time parameters and time frames that has been put in place. Christmas time or Christmas Eve, use them up until 12 o'clock. And New Year's Day, you only got from 10 until 1. So don't overstep that boundary. Otherwise, you might face a stiff law penalty there. Now, the term People's Parliament took on a literal meaning this year. Tens of thousands made their way to the gates of the legislature. Most marches were peaceful and orderly, but for the first time, there were violent clashes inside the parliamentary precinct.
The gates of Parliament, a well-known site for delivery of wishes and woes, anger and tears. Individuals, civil organizations and political movements across the spectrum brought their causes here. Often demonstrations are merely symbolic. Others demand answers. And sometimes dire straits bring people to this place. Like this group of elderly South Africans. They arrived on a Tuesday morning, the day pensioners are offered discount rates on public transport. The seniors walked here from the bus and train station in the city, their plight as dignified as it was desperate.
We are asking here as the elderly, the pensioners, who struggles, who cart themselves by train, by bus, whether you're walking with a helper in your hand, whether you sit in a wheelchair, you are here. And I'm glad everybody is here today, and I thank God that they came, because hunger is hunger, poor is poor.
I got to sit at ShopRite to ask for money, to help, for food. I feel ashamed to ask people for money.
Many of them begging for survival. They only hope their pleas will be heard. Parliament promised to process their memorandum and entrust it to the relevant committee. Another matter arriving at Parliament, xenophobic attacks. Many joined the MK Military Veterans Association in demanding foreigners and refugees be protected.
Our people got a right to come and ask for political asylum. They've got a place to run to. So we are saying today to the world and to the people at large, those are our brothers, those are our sisters. Let's stop calling them foreigners. They are Africans.
One of the larger marches to Parliament saw around 3,000 people standing up against crime. With religious leaders and NGOs, they urged Parliament and government to clamp down on corruption. And then there was the longest uninterrupted protest, resulting in physical clashes with police. It came from the very people who keep Parliament running, the staff. From cleaners to committee secretaries to parliamentary researchers, all Nehawu workers down tools over working conditions and performance payouts.
If people from Marikana survived, we will survive as well.
Parliament obtained an interdict ordering strikers off the premises. It ended in a shutdown. Once cooler heads prevailed, protesters were allowed to stay in the precinct. But the work of Parliament was disrupted for more than 3 weeks. Committee meetings and House sittings were constantly rescheduled to the irritation of MPs.
Been meeting with them almost on a daily basis in order to try and find ways and means as a partner to dealing with the impasse that was there, that was preventing us having a full complement because of the actions that are undertaken.
On behalf of COSATU, I want to come here and pledge to you that if this matter is not resolved today, nobody will come into Parliament tomorrow.
Finally, Parliament put its foot down and striking workers were locked out to picket where other citizens have to, outside. Another passionate issue brought to Parliament, animal welfare. Protesters demanded better protection of rhino and elephants against poachers and tighter legislation to safeguard endangered species. But the protest that made international headlines, the Fees Must Fall campaign. Part of a national protest, Western Cape students marched to Parliament to address Higher Education Minister Blade Nzimande.
All I do is ask for a police officer's name and they want to arrest me. All we want to do is talk to Blade Nzimande.
With the joint sitting of the two houses underway for the midterm budget, students breached Parliament's perimeter. Public order police were roped in and things soon became up close and personal. All hell broke loose. It sent shockwaves through the country. Parliament's image came into question. But Parliament said it's obliged to ensure the National Assembly, a national key point, is kept safe at all costs. Despite a sometimes rowdy year, Parliament remains a symbol of freedom and justice. And whether dapper or desperate, citizens increasingly turn to this institution with their anger, fears and hopes. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
Now let me take you back to a story we wanted to do earlier. Nature conservation representatives are expected to visit a Christiana farmer in the Northern Cape today who is accused of mistreating animals on his farm. His neighbours say that he is keeping hundreds of game but does not feed them, and many have already died from hunger. Some organisations have already taken it upon themselves to feed their animals by throwing the fodder over the fence, as the owner of the farm refuses to open the gates. Now, for more on the story, let's now cross live to our reporter Puleng Ndupi, who is in Christiana in the hot sun in the Northern Cape there. Thank you for holding on for us there, my dear. And can you give us an update what is happening there?
Today we have people of the nature conservation and an organization that feeds animals, that helps farmers in need. They are here at the farm. They are visiting the farm. They are here to assist because, as they've been doing for the past couple of weeks, they've been feeding the animals over the fence. So there's also the neighbor, the farmers next door, who has also taken it upon it themselves to help the animals. I'm here with Zandi Kun, who's working at the farm next door, and then she will explain how they are helping out. Hello, Zandi.
Hello.
Can you please, just in short, explain what is it exactly that you are doing here to assist the animals next door?
I work at a farm next door for Conrad, and driving past every day to see animals dying, that there's no food and stuff. So the boere in Noord bring us some feed, and we're just throwing it over and make sure the animals have enough food because the owner doesn't feed them.
Have you actually seen dead animals, like the carcasses of animals that are dying because of hunger?
Lots of them. You can see many of them next to the fence. It's very bad.
And then now, in terms of feeding, how do you feed the animals?
We have to take lots of our workers to roll the big bales on the bakkie and then throw it over the fence. So we don't want to break the fence, so we try to do it nicely and just to throw it over and then just take the wire off so the animals doesn't get any ropes of wire in.
So since you've been assisting the farmers, have you maybe gotten any feedback? The owner of the farm, has he said anything to you?
Not at me, but for the boss, the women that say thank you for the feed, and that's all. He doesn't want to help and feed his own animals.
Thank you, Zandi. We have here an organization that assists farmers who are in need. They are the one who are supplying all the fodder to the farm here. We'll be speaking to Kuabas. Kuabas, good day.
Good day to you, ma'am.
Can you please just in short explain how did you come about this farm? How did you know about this?
Ma'am, we was visiting this was a Reneke Kalahari area nearby Vryburg, and one of the farmers asked us, can we make a plan to visit the farm Diamond at Christiana? It's in the Free State side. So about 3 weeks back, myself and my wife, we came around here and we took photos, and our group, I spoke to NCS Kumbi and Nico Gerber of the group Boere in Noord, where I'm also part of, and we decided that we will start feeding the game, and we got a guy that donated a whole link of bales. That means 52 bales of lucerne from Oudtshoorn, and it was arriving here within 3 days, and we tripped the fence to get into the farm so we can start feeding the game. The worst part is to see game that's laying starving of hunger. The only water point they got is at the river, and the drop in the river is about 1.5 meters that they must go down to get themselves feet of water. So we start a process with Wildlife South Africa, and Nature Conservation was here today as well. We appreciate their help, but mostly we appreciate the guys that was donating the feed or the lucerne for us. And we as an organization is a hard point for us. We can't see animals suffer, and we'll do our most best. We'll fight a battle to get a game removed from the farm Diamond, because the owner really didn't put out any help from his side. Although he's a wealthy man, he don't even respond to messages to him from Wildlife South Africa and from Nature Conservation. So our next point is we're going to get involved in a court battle case where lots of senior councillors from the Free State will take a hand with us, as well as Wildlife South Africa, Nature Conservation and agriculture. Unfortunately, guys is on leave at the moment, but most of them cut short their vacations to visit us. And especially the guys from Nation Convention. I spoke to the director of Nation Convention Free State on Monday, and within 10 minutes it was arranged that they will be here today to assess the animals for us. And the point is, they say the animals are in a very bad condition and it needs to be removed from the farm if the owner don't take care of it.
Now, have you maybe tried to engage the farmer, the owner of the farm, to check with him why is he not feeding his animals?
That's correct. Right in the beginning, the farmer's wife, Elena, phoned me, and they was willing to open the gates for us to put in the feed for them. But on the day of arrival of the feed, they had an excuse, or maybe, I don't know, they said they were in Cape Town. So we decided we'll trip the electric fence with the help of the neighbour as well as some of law enforcement people of Christiana. So we physically tripped the fence and went over and entered the farm and took photos of the carcasses. The animals started starving. And it's, as I spoke here, it's heartbroken. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Kobus.
That's okay.
The organization that assists farmers, they are saying that they are going to take steps to ensure that they make sure that all the animals that are kept here in the farm are taken away and been taken proper care of. Back to the studio.
Puleng Modupi, thank you so much for that update there. And as you can hear from the farmer, it's heartbreaking seeing the animals die on that particular farm. And as you heard, the farmer is on holiday in Cape Town, December boss, and forget about his animals on the farm. Well, I hope they do sort it out as soon as possible. Let's take a look at some of your comments. The International Cricket Council has announced its winners for the 2015 ICC Awards. Let's take a look at some of your tweets. You can send it to us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. This one from Lukman says, I want to congratulate my favourite blaster, King of Cricket, AB de Villiers, 17, to become the one-day cricketer of the year. Hashtag ICC, says Lukman. This one from Mr. Chartla. No Indian names expected, as expected. ICC Awards, says Mr. Chartla. Suprakash Mishra says, congrats to Steve Smith, 49, Australia, for the ICC Test Cricketer of the Year. And AB de Villiers, 17, hashtag South Africa for ICC ODI Cricketer of the Year. Wonderful one there from Suprakash. This from Dave Noseworthy. How can at Kane Cricketer not have won the ICC Cricketer of the Year award? He has been a running machine. Simple, says Dave Noseworthy. And it seems like those are all the comments that we have there for you. You can keep them coming here at SABC Newsroom. We're asking you a very important question. The King is on his way to jail. Should the King go to jail? That's the question that we pose to you. Let us know what's on your mind at SABC Newsroom. But right now, it is Tsetsi time with Tsetsi Monare and your latest weather forecast.
Hi there, welcome from the weather desk. It is indeed Tsetsi time. Let's have a look at this weather. So over the central part of South Africa as well as the western regions, we're expecting really hot weather because of the heat wave that's just passing through along those parts. And then possibilities of showers along the east coast as well as into some parts of Gauteng. And those will move all the way towards the central and the northwestern parts. Some of it also expected in towards Mozambique. Your temperatures are expected to be fine and warm towards the central regions, becoming very hot towards Upington at 39 degrees. Pietermaritzburg is at 36, actually 31, and Bloemfontein is at 36 degrees. Port Elizabeth 30, 24 for Cape Town, and much cooler weather is expected along the western Cape coastline. Pretoria 35, as I mentioned, 28 towards Harare. Lusaka is also expected into those upper 20s. We're expecting some showers from the southern parts, or rather the northern parts of Rwanda, as well as over places such as Uganda, stretching into Burundi, and we're expecting rain all the way towards the western regions, and up to 60% chance of showers are expected along those regions, and so possibilities of some thunderstorms just over the southern parts of the DRC. In terms of your temperatures, 25 for Kampala, It is expected to be quite hot for Addis Ababa. Temperatures at 23 degrees, a maximum of 31 for Mogadishu, and slightly rainy weather for Kigali, going all the way towards Kinshasa, with possibilities of those rainy conditions spreading in towards Brazzaville. Luxor is expected to be very clear. Not much rainfall is expected over much of the central parts of the Sahara Desert. A bit of rain is expected only towards Mecca, all the way in Saudi Arabia for today, and so that's over tomorrow. There's also a small chance of rain along those parts. Some of those showers could also be seen in towards Port Sudan, maybe stretching down to Djibouti. Temperatures are expected to be nice and warm along those parts into the upper 20s. Djibouti, in fact, is at 28 degrees, 25 towards Port Sudan, Mecca at around 30 degrees. Riyadh is also much hotter, so do expect cooler weather for Benghazi, going all the way towards Tripoli. Damascus at 15 degrees. The rest of West Africa is also expected to be quite dry. Not much rainfall is expected there, which is quite usual weather. A bit of moisture can be seen into Mali, but nothing is going to change much. I don't think lots of rainfall will be coming in there. Along the coastal parts, again, there should be some showers all the way towards Togo as well as over Lagos. Temperatures are also expected to just remain the same. Nothing is changing significantly along those parts. Just take a look at Abidjan at 32 degrees. Lagos is at 34. Dakar at 27, and again, nice and warm weather is expected all the way into towards the central part of Ouagadougou in Mali. That's why I leave it for the weather, but do stay tuned, there'll be more later.
Controlesa is actually stirring the pot here.
I'm sure they've been consulted as Controlesa. They did not see a snake. Now that in certain areas there are certain benefits that might possibly be accruing, there is a snake, now we need to reverse the process.
I agree, but it is not above the sovereignty of the people. The very same court you're talking about.
The sovereignty of the people, probably you should explain that to me.
The sovereignty of the people is above everything.
It is not proper the way facts are presented to the public. Are you in contact with Kgosigolo Motshodi?
He was kicked out by the court because he wanted to be amicus curiae.
For your weekly dose of all things legal, join Dumile Mateza every Sunday at 2 p.m. only on SABC News Channel. News Today takes an in-depth look on news locally, continentally, and globally. We bring the world to your home. We cover all economy news extensively to keep you informed. We are live to break news as and when they happen across the world. We analyze news using experts in all aspects. Make a date with News Today every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m.
Morning Live sets the agenda for the day. We bring you the latest local and international news. We are on the ball with all your sports activities and results. We give you the latest business update.
We bring you the latest weather every time.
Watch Morning Live every weekday morning at 6 o'clock, bringing you everything you need to know before you go. Shap shap, tada.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on this Wednesday, the 23rd of December 2015. If it's your birthday, happy birthday to you and me. It's a 2-day or just 2 days before Christmas. And the question is, have you done your shopping? This is Newsroom, Jumbo Africa. A warm welcome to the second hour. I'm Elvis Preston. We'll be with you until 12 o'clock. You have to stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show now available on our YouTube channel. And we're asking you also a very important question this morning. The focus is on King Dalindyebo, who is expected to hand himself over to a correctional center this morning to begin his 12-year jail time. So we're asking you, do you think that the king should go to jail? Well, if you want to comment, use our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. But first, let's take a look at all your news headlines. Abatembu King Bulekaya Dalindyebo is expected to hand himself over to a correctional facility to begin his 12-year jail sentence. Nigeria plans to revive its struggling economy by increasing capital expenditure. And the International Organization for Migration says the number of migrant deaths has increased to shocking proportions this year. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news stories, let's find out from Marumo Kakana what's happening on the sports front. Very good morning once again.
Good morning. Before we talk about sports, have you done your Christmas shopping?
Well, I've started, but I promise you it's not done yet. I mean, we're working, man.
Yeah, of course we're working. and you come across as that
and you,
guy
have you finished?
Who takes his time when he goes out shopping.
No, not really. 5 minutes in and out. I know exactly what I want, What about you? You finished?
Well, I'm here. I'm working. I'll probably do it tomorrow also. Thanks, Elvis. Let's now take a look at the stories making headlines in the world of sports. A leading official at the World Athletics Federation, Nick Davis, is to step aside while an ethics committee investigates emails he had sent regarding Russian doping ahead of the 2013 World Championships in Moscow, Russia. And Leicester City to finish at the top of the English Premier League table at Christmas for the first time in the club's 131 years of existence. We'll have more on this and other stories making headlines in the world of sports later on during the Sports Bulletin.
Thank you, Marumo. He will be back later with more. But right now, your top story this hour. The Correctional Services in Eastern Cape says it does not know what time the Abatembu King Bulekaya Dalindyebo will report at the Wellington Maximum Prison at Mthatha. Now, the king is expected to start his 12-year sentence today after his final appeal to the Constitutional Court failed earlier this month. The king has also allegedly applied for presidential pardon. Now, this after his final appeal to the Constitutional Court failed earlier this month. The King Dalindyebo was found guilty in 2013 for crimes committed against his subjects in 1995 and 1996. These included arson, kidnapping, and defeating the ends of justice. The Justice Department has indicated that the king will be afforded no special treatment when he begins his sentence today and will be treated like all other inmates. We will cross back to Zimkita at around about 11 a.m. to give us an update on that story to see if there's any sign of the king at the correctional services there in Mthatha, and we'll keep you updated on that. So stay tuned right here on your favorite channel, Channel 404, SABC News. This is Newsroom. Meanwhile, the Justice Department spokesperson, Mthunzi Maga, says, in terms of the Correctional Services Act, no one should receive preferential treatment. Therefore, King Dalindyebo will be treated as such.
In terms of the Correctional Services Act, there is a sentence plan for every inmate, and depending on the category that he falls under. So there will never be any special treatment for anyone who comes to our correctional centers.
The South African Police Service has re-employed at least 548 former officers in an effort to bolster its fight against crime. There were 1,105 re-enlistment posts that needed to be filled, and more than 3,000 applications had been received from former police officers. The acting National Police Commissioner spoke to SABC News earlier this morning and we asked him why ex-police officers were brought back into the force.
There are people out there who are already trained, who are skilled, and who have got the competencies to make a difference in the environment. You obviously will appreciate that people leave for various reasons, and where, for example, they have got an interest to plow back, we will continue to open our doors to re-enlist their services.
Yeah. Well, FIFA presidential candidate Tokyo Sexwale has confirmed answering questions from the U.S. grand jury about an alleged 120 million rand payment made to the former vice president of FIFA, Jack Warner. Now, Sexwale made it clear that he was not summoned as a suspect, but only because he was part of the 2010 World Cup organizing committee. The former Robben Island prisoner was questioned on December the 17th. Sexwale says he's not sure whether other South Africans have appeared or will still appear before the U.S. justice officials.
They wanted to know information about them. I have none. And the people who wrote whatever letters will be the one to answer those things. But, you know, we also heard about these things for the first time when they were published, because they had nothing to do with the local organizing committee, LOC. These were SAFA matters.
Further afield now, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari says his government plans to revive a struggling economy by tripling capital expenditure. Africa's biggest economy expects its budget deficit to double to 2.2 trillion naira in 2016.
Buhari told the parliament that Nigeria will borrow as much as 900 billion naira abroad to fund the deficit, which equals to 2.16% of GDP. Nigeria's economy has been hammered by a plunge in oil prices, which has weakened the naira. It's also delayed the payments of civil servants and forced companies to fire thousands of staff. Buhari highlighted that the West African nation expects revenues of around 3.9 trillion naira next year. 820 billion naira will come from key oil revenues. Another major focus will be the improvement of tax collection and non-oil industries such as agriculture and mining.
Our deficit will be financed by a combination of domestic borrowing of 984 billion naira and foreign borrowing of 900 billion naira, totaling 1.84 billion naira. Over the medium term, we expect to increase revenues and reduce overheads to bring the fiscal deficit down to 1.3% of GDP by 2018.
Despite the depressed oil prices, Buhari is adamant that Nigeria's economy will grow by 4.4% next year. He reiterated that the budget is based on an oil price of $38 a barrel. Oil production will be expected to be 2.2 million barrels a day.
We believe that this budget, while helping industry, commerce and investment to pick up, will, as a matter of urgency, address the immediate problems of youth unemployment and the terrible living conditions of the extremely poor and vulnerable Nigerians.
Buhari got elected in March on a campaign to root out graft and mismanagement, which have left most people in poverty. Meanwhile, the central bank governor sent a strong warning that the economy might slip into recession unless a stimulus is brought underway.
The Free State Health Department here at home will host an Operation Arrive Healthy. That's an event in support of the Arrive Alive campaign on the N1 road near Ventersburg. The objective is to render preventative primary health care and emergency services from a central environment where all emergency medical care service resources can respond from. Now, this will do a couple of things. It will allow road users to be tested on the basic skill of medical vital signs and to empower road users with healthy safety tips to prevent unwanted deaths and road crashes. Now, for more on this campaign, let's now cross live to our reporter Ismail Modiba, who is in Ventersburg. A very good morning to you, Ismail, and welcome. And can you give us an update on that story?
Good morning, Elvis. Yes, we are stationed here at the N1 at the Ventersdorp, where the members of the Free State Emergency Medical Services have started an operation Arrive Healthy. This is in collaboration with the Department of Safety and Transport, Arrive Alive. And basically, the purpose of this operation is to ensure that the drivers who pass here, there's a high number of volumes of traffic that is passing by. They want to ensure that all the drivers who are passing on this road are healthy and sound for their trips. So they want to ensure that they have a peace of mind, they know about their well-being and their state of health. But with us here, we are joined by the provincial manager of the EMS, Mr. Ruben Reuters, to explain to us exactly the purpose of this operation and what they are intending to achieve by this. Mr. Reuters, can you tell us about this operation?
Thank you. I think this operation is, as you rightfully mentioned, is in support of Arrive Alive. Now, you'll know that this Arrive Alive mainly focus on driver safety, vehicle safety, and so forth. Now, at the Department of Health, we have joined forces with, as you rightfully mentioned, with the Department of Transport to make sure that we call ours Arrive Healthy, because we need to take care of those who will be driving these vehicles and the occupants. We need to ensure that we capacitate them with the necessary knowledge of, as they arrive at their destinations, they know how to treat minor ailments, injuries before they could go to the emergency services. Now, what we're doing today here is fully blessed by our Premier Ismail Khashula, our MEC Dr. Benny Malakwane, who's currently also operational at various avenues, roadblocks, and conducting unannounced visits and so forth. So the drivers, they will be expecting to visit our mobile clinics, because we'll be distributing condoms, we'll be doing some screening, looking at our road users' blood pressures, your sugar diabetic levels, and also, like I rightfully mentioned, giving them free health education.
Now, Mr. Reuters, on our way here to this spot, there were a lot of traffic going the opposite direction, showing that a lot of people are on holiday. And I just want to find out with you, this kind of operation, how many are you planning to do on this kind of road or throughout the festive season? Tell us your operation.
Yeah, as part of our operations festive plan, we have numerous of this kind of operation. Currently, we have decided that one stop at Ventersburg. We know that trucks is very busy here, and we need to make sure that the truck users and drivers are our main focus, and the taxi drivers. So going down the N1 direction Cape Town, we based on information and statistics that we got from our toll gates and Sanral, we decided that we need to target high volumes going down the direction Cape Town. But as and when they arrive out traveling back from Cape Town direction to Johannesburg, then we'll be switching positions, making sure that we target the same community members going back. We ensure that we want to ensure that they go safely to the holidays, and they must arrive again healthy, going back to their residence after the holidays.
And in terms of accidents on our road, particularly on our national road, how busy are you starting with the holiday season? Can you give us a bit of a statistics in terms of the accident that you have registered?
Yeah, currently we're having a lot of accidents on our N5 and N1, and mainly contributed by stray animals. We currently have less incidents where we had big fatalities in terms of bus accidents or any major vehicles. We had another one near Polru, where a taxi and a buggy overturned, and there we utilize our helicopters that you see in the background to airlift those who were critically injured to our facilities, mainly Pelnomi Hospital.
Well, that's it, Elvis. As you can see behind us, there are a lot of EMS helicopters, and they came here in numbers to show that they are ready to help the motorists who will be passing by on our national roads to ensure that they arrive home safely and healthy.
Ismail Modiba, our reporter there in the Free State, and you can arrive healthy after you drive through the Free State. We'll probably get an update on that road also going through the Free State, the N1, because we believe there was one lane there that was problematic. Now, the number of refugees and migrants arriving by land and sea in the European Union has passed 1 million this year. The International Organization for Migration says a further 3,600 of those people died or went missing. This is 3 to 4 times the number of people that arrived into Europe in 2014. Half of those arriving were Syrians that were fleeing the war. Another 20% were Afghans and 7% were Iraqis. The IOM's Director General, William Lacey Swing, says that unless negotiations on Syria succeed in bringing peace and the European Union come together to propose solutions, allowing living conditions in Syria's neighboring countries to improve, Lacey Swing insisted that there wouldn't be a reason to see these numbers decrease in 2016.
We have just published the figures of passing the 1 million mark for the number of refugees and other migrants heading north into Europe, primarily out of Syria, but other areas also. And of that number, the death total is very close to 3,700, primarily in the Mediterranean, central Mediterranean, with many fewer in the Aegean and the land route in the Balkans. But this is 3 to 4 times as many migrants coming north and refugees as we had in the year 2014. And the deaths have already far surpassed the deaths in last year.
Well, that's your news for now. We'll keep you updated on all the stories as it unfolds here on Channel 404 on Newsroom. We'll take a break and we'll be right back with your sports news. After that with Marumo Kakana.
Technology isn't all scary. There's also fun stuff like gaming.
Lots of women do play games, whether it's on their phones or their tablets.
Then there are Africans who are using new tools to make other people's lives much easier.
We typed the whole CV on a small, QWERTY Nokia phone.
For all these and other technology and social media news, join me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC News.
Welcome back and warm greetings from the sports desk. Let's update your sports news. The Chief of Staff of the International Association Athletics Federation, Nick Davis, will reportedly step aside from his role to allow an ethics committee to investigate emails he reportedly sent regarding Russia doping ahead of the 2013 World Championship in Moscow, Russia. Earlier in the week, an email sent by Davis to Papa Masata Diak, the son of former IAAF President Lamine Diak, discussing a special dossier was leaked. The email is reported to be discussing what could be prepared to limit the impact of a series of positive tests by Russian athletes. The report is also said to be criticizing the governing body for what the email says it is a lack of intervention by IAAF to the problem. Though the extent of Russian doping is now out in the open, the IAAF were seemingly fighting to keep a lead on it 2 years ago. The email, which was sent in July of 2013, a month before the Moscow World Championship, also suggested that CSM, the sport marketing firm chaired by IAAF President Sebastian Coe, could be used as part of an unofficial PR campaign to fend off negative stories in the British media. At odds of 1,000 to 1, many did not bet that Leicester City would be at the top of the English Premier League table at Christmas. For the first time in the club's 131 years history, they have managed to achieve that feat. But manager Claudio Ranieri is playing down the title talk. City away to Liverpool on Boxing Day, and Ranieri said that the team will rely on their endurance to maintain their 10-match unbeaten streak.
All the world are speaking about you. Play. Continue to play how you are doing. You can win, you can lose, it's okay. Sooner or later, I hope more later, but We lose a match. That's normal. But we must continue to play and to work hard. We know very well our stamina is good, and until our stamina is good, we can continue to fight against everybody.
In the recent days, South Africa has been under spotlight when it comes to developing young stars in sports. The country is not doing bad compared to their counterparts they usually compete with in the global scale. To talk to us about the grassroots development in South Africa, we are joined in the studio by independent sports analyst Cecil John Rhodes. Mr. Rhodes, welcome to Newsroom.
Thank you, Manomo. Thanks for having me.
How would you say we're doing when it comes to grassroots development in South Africa across all the sporting codes?
In general, I think we're doing very well. South Africa often takes flack that we're not doing enough for sport, and particularly the youngsters in South Africa. I was in Pretoria 2 weeks ago where the Department of Sport and Recreation hosted a tournament. There must have been 5,000 youngsters running up and down. Sport and Recreation paid for all of this. The Department of Sport, they're doing more than their fair share in terms of that.
But now let's talk about the quality of these athletes that we are developing. Are we developing world stars, or are we developing players that can actually compete at the global stage?
And I think what we need to consider is that there are layers within sport. Government is doing their fair share in terms of developing youngsters, in terms of getting youngsters to play. Yes, we're not playing enough sport at school level, but government is trying to do stuff in terms of getting sport played at school. Then if you look at the various other levels where youngsters, for instance, the under-19 Kaya Majola week, various other codes, hockey, cricket, rugby, people are playing sport, and they are elite sports people at age group level. So yes, the feeder is there for children coming into the age group elite sport, so government is doing their fair share. And if we continue with this, I think in a few years' time we'll have top-class sportsmen throughout South Africa.
What would you say are the challenges facing those grassroots development coaches in South Africa presently?
The big thing for me is coach education. I don't think we have enough coach education at grassroots level. People are getting children to play, and often that's where it stops. They're not getting specific skills for the sporting code that they're involved with, for the children to grow and become elite sportsmen within that particular code of sport.
Now, when in most cases, you're looking at the mainstream sporting codes, the coaches in rugby, cricket, soccer, they're under pressure to perform, because if not, of course, they will lose their jobs. And in most cases, they don't now look at development as an alternative. How much of an impact do you think that has when it comes to developing young talent?
And I think that's where the problem lies. In the lower leagues, the coaches aren't educated enough to help the coaches at the top level to improve our sport in general. When the guy gets or the lady gets to the top level, he must still be shown how to pass a ball, how to hit the cricket ball, how to bowl properly. Whereas the skills, the finer skills must be honed at that stage and not going back and doing basic coaching.
Let's also talk about interest from the general public to these lower leagues, to these grassroots development projects. Are we, as South Africans, interested that much that will go out and support these youngsters?
And that's another area where the interest is not enough. Back in the day, you know, when I used to play sport, the field used to be covered with spectators. Nowadays, it's only mommy and daddy that's standing along the side and trying to motivate the youngsters. But the public at large, the communities at large, they're not going supporting the youngsters, trying to uplift them and the community and get the sports people coming out of the community.
Why is that, and what can be done to change that?
It's a difficult one. I don't know what we're going to do. There are so many other things that people are interested in. And so going where sport used to be a recreational activity, where the whole family used to go, where the community used to go, that has changed. And I think somehow we need to move with the times as well.
Looking at the fact that now we have the under 19 cricket that will be defending their World Cup next year in Bangladesh, and we also have the under 23 that have qualified to go play in the Rio de Janeiro Olympics next year. Would you say we're on the right path?
that shows that we're on the right path, that the under-19s are competing, Banyana qualified, the under-23s qualified, and we're competing more and more within South African sport. In 2022, we have the Commonwealth Games, and I'm sure SASCOC and various other sporting bodies would have specific programs to get youngsters into it so that we can compete at the highest level. I've been to previous Commonwealth Games where the hosting country, they target and they say, we want to be the top medal taker at that particular Commonwealth, and I'm sure it will be no different for South Africa.
Let's look at the PSL. There's a number of up-and-coming young players that have displayed their talent, if you will. We talk about the likes of Kegan Dolly of Sundowns. He represented the under-23 fairly well. Would you say we're almost there now, creating those players that the PSL needs?
We're there. If you look at most of the PSL teams, Ajax, Kaizer Chiefs, Sundowns, all of them have youth development, and the players are coming through the ranks at the rate of knots. The big thing with soccer, and I don't know how long it will be there, is the club versus country debate. I mean, if you look at Keegan, he hardly came off the field for the under-23s, and he had to come home and play again. So there's a whole debate around that. And, I mean, again, by the same token, the Sevens rugby team, they in camp on their own, and that's all they do. They don't have to represent other provinces or other teams. And what with professional soccer, there's always, do I represent the club or do I represent the country?
So in a nutshell, you would say it's not all doom and gloom?
Far from it, far from it. If I had to look at it, within a few years, South Africa will be among the top sporting nations in the world.
Good to hear. Thanks a lot, Cecil, for coming through. That was the independent sports analyst, Cecil John Rhodes, joining us in the studio to talk to us about the grassroots development in South Africa. Stay with us. Newsroom will continue immediately after this short break.
Are you saying the king must go to jail? You are not royal blood, therefore you are going to serve time on behalf of the king. Where does the public protector stand on this matter? Are you with the marches, for the marches, against the march? If this is your ancestor, it is very much his ancestor as well, because this is the cradle of humankind. Is there God somewhere in your science? Drinking the blood of a person with albinism gives extra magical powers. A man of the cloth is involved here because it would mean that somehow religion is being brought into this part of the myth. What do you say to me?
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
News Today takes an in-depth look on news locally, continentally, and globally. We bring the world to your home. We cover all economy news extensively to keep you informed. We are live to break news as and when they happen across the world. We analyze news using experts in all aspects. Make a date with News Today every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m.
I'm Peter Miller. And I'm production Chetty Miller, SAB Miller.
Anheuser-Busch InBev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful.
Have you ever considered skin bleaching? Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin.
Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally.
Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
Time now to take a look at your African headlines. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius yesterday offered his support to soon-to-be Prime Minister of Libya. Libya's new government is set to take power next month. This comes after United Nations proposed deal was reached earlier this month. The Foreign Ministry released a statement saying that France will assist Libya with several issues, including security and terrorism. French troops in Mali neutralized 10 fighters during a weekend mission against the Al-Maraboutin Islamist group. The group claimed responsibility for last month's attack on Radisson Blu Hotel in Bamako that left 19 people dead. According to the Defense Ministry, Saturday's gunfire continued for around 4 hours. A large quantity of arms and explosives were seized. The government of Mali has reaffirmed its decision to stop the arrest and prosecution of homosexual citizens. Existing anti-gay laws are currently being reviewed by lawmakers. This comes after a 2010 incident in which a same-sex couple were arrested, forced to undergo medical tests and charged with sodomy. However, the charges were dropped. Rights groups praised this decision by the government. And the United Nations Security Council has blacklisted 2 more people ahead of the Central African Republic elections. The accused were added to the list for attempting to interfere with government affairs ahead of the voting process. They were also accused of inciting violence against Muslims. An international travel ban and asset freeze has been implemented. The CAR descended into chaos 2 years ago after the predominantly Muslim Seleka rebels seized power in the majority Christian nation. Those were some of your African headlines. Now, the continuing violence in northeast Nigeria and neighboring countries targeted by Boko Haram has forced more than 1 million children out of school. More than 2,000 schools in Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad and Niger remain closed due to the conflict, and hundreds have been looted, damaged or destroyed. Let's now take a look back at an interview we had with Ida Sawyer from the Human Rights Watch about schools being used as military bases in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
So even though the M23 rebellion has been defeated, there's still dozens of armed groups that are active in eastern Congo, including the ADF, the Allied Democratic Forces, a Ugandan-led group operating in the northern part of North Kivu, Mai Mai Cheka, the FDLR, Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, Rwandan rebel group, and numerous other Mai Mai militias. And these groups continue to attack civilians, kill, rape, and also recruit children to serve as soldiers or sex slaves within their groups. And the Congolese army is still carrying out military operations against many of these groups, and the soldiers of the army have also been responsible for serious abuses, including occupation of schools, as we document in this report.
What about children now being recruited for, children being recruited as soldiers there in the region? Is that still happening?
So in the past, the recruitment of children by the Congolese army was a serious problem. It was widespread within the army as numerous rebel groups were integrated into the army. But in recent years, the government has made serious progress, and they adopted an action plan in 2012 to end the use of children within the Congolese armed forces. And since then, recruitment has really gone down to almost none by the soldiers and officially in the army. But we still have a big problem with armed groups continuing to recruit and use child soldiers. And the Congolese government has not yet taken enough steps to stop the use of schools and occupation of schools for military purposes during these conflicts.
We're seeing a picture right now of classrooms being in total state of disrepair. It looks like a bomb has gone off in some of them. What is being done to rebuild the classrooms and rebuild these abandoned schools?
So when these schools have been used for military purposes, in some cases the soldiers are just there for a night, sleeping in the school as a temporary barracks. But in other cases, they occupy the school for a week or a month or even longer. And during that time, first, children miss out on their education. They're not able to come to school. And it also poses serious risk to children when they come back. Sometimes there's still unused ammunition or weapons, other military equipment that's abandoned at the school and could cause security problems. And then the soldiers also often use the wooden desks, the walls, the benches of the school for fireworks. They loot everything that's there. They take the tin sheeting. So it's really, in Congo where already it's very difficult for parents to find the resources, scrape together the money to send their students to school. Now, on top of this, after military occupation and schools are destroyed, it's even more difficult for children to receive quality education. There are some efforts, and there are a number of organizations working in Eastern Congo to try to rebuild schools and ensure that kids have access and that there are alternatives when the schools are occupied, but there's much more that needs to be done.
2015 has seen the African continent experience a number of incidents ranging from elections, terrorist attacks, lack of will by some leaders to step down, and several coup attempts. Lahana Tsotsetse looked back at the year and what transpired on the African continent.
Zambia was the first of several African countries to hold key elections. Edgar Lungu won the January 20th poll with 48% of the vote. His opponent, Hakainde Hichilema, garnered 46% support. The presidential election was held following the death of President Michael Sata. He died in office in October 2014. Lesotho held snap elections on the 28th of February after Parliament was dissolved. The former Prime Minister Pakadi Tamusisidi of the Democratic Congress won the elections. They were originally set for May 2017 but were brought forward against a backdrop of political instability and political mediation by SADC and South Africa. The much anticipated Nigerian elections were finally held on the 28th of March. General Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressive Congress won the presidency and was inaugurated on May the 29th. Two other West African nations, namely Guinea and Ivory Coast, also went to the polls this year. Ivory Coast incumbent President Alassane Ouattara won a landslide victory with over 80% of the vote. There were elections in Sudan, Ethiopia, Burundi and Tanzania as well. On the 13th of April, the Sudanese people headed to the polls. The turnout was low. Only 46% of the population cast their ballots in the first elections since South Sudan ceded in 2011. President Omar al-Bashir's ruling National Congress won over 90% of the vote in a poll boycotted by opposition parties. On the 24th of May, the ruling Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front secured a landslide victory, winning all 546 parliamentary seats. And on the 25th of October, John Mukafuri of Chama Mapinduzi, Tanzania's ruling party, emerged victorious. The continent also had to contend with leaders attempting to extend their stay in power, a move that so many democracies condemned the exercising of undemocratic principles to stay in power. In January, the youth in the Democratic Republic of Congo protested against the government announcement that a draft law would allow Joseph Kabila to remain in power until a national census had been conducted. Kabila has been in power for 14 years. His second term ends in December 2016. More than 40 people have been killed during these protests. In Burundi, After months of protests, President Pierre Nkurunziza walked away after a third term in office. He had served and finished 2 terms from 2005 to 2015. On the 15th of July, Burundians went to the polls. This after a constitutional court ruling in April in favor of Nkurunziza's argument that his term did not count, as he had been elected by a parliament and not the voters. Hundreds of people have been killed and thousands more displaced as the country battles with continuing instability.
We will take necessary actions as we observe and watch the situation, how it evolves. Depending upon the evolution of the situation, we may have to level up our presence and our activities.
In Congo-Brazzaville, a referendum on constitutional change was held on the 25th of October. The proposed changes call for the scrapping of 2-term limits. The outcome favors Sassou Nguesso's bid for a third term. The next presidential elections are scheduled for 2016. Denis Sassou Nguesso has been in power since 1979. In Rwanda, the highest court ruled that President Paul Kagame should be able to run for a third 7-year term. The Supreme Court rejected the challenge from the opposition over Parliament's move to abolish term limits. The continent also saw coup attempts this year. On the 13th of May, Major General Godefroid Niyombare, Burundi's former intelligence chief, stated in a radio address that President Nkurunziza had been removed from office. The Burundian army immediately responded that it had thwarted a coup attempt and arrested the plotters. On the 16th of September, Burkina Faso's Presidential Security Regiment detained the interim president, Michael Kafondo, and his prime minister, Isaac Zida. Terrorist attacks continue to be on the rise, with Kenya and Nigeria being the hottest hit. Al-Shabaab militants stormed Garissa University College in Kenya and killed 147 students, including security officers, and wounded hundreds. Al-Shabaab launched several other attacks in the country, killing more than 200 people. Boko Haram continued to terrorize northeastern Nigeria and its neighboring states of Chad, Niger, and Cameroon by launching multiple attacks that killed hundreds of people and displaced thousands. Lesotho and Burundi continue to be pockets of instability in Southern Africa, despite having gone through elections to install new governments. In both countries, the opposition complained of extrajudiciary killings. Lehana Sotitsi, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now that was a wrap of African news. Now let's take a look back at 2015 in the United States with our U.S. correspondent, Kate Fisher.
2015 in the United States will be remembered as the year of confrontation in many communities between police and the citizens they are supposed to protect.
Tear gas.
We almost lost count of the number of videotaped killings that brought people onto the streets all over the country. There was Eric Garner, the New Yorker, choked to death by officers as they tried to arrest him for black market cigarette sales. Tamir Rice, the 13-year-old shot to death by an officer in Ohio after brandishing a replica gun in a playground. Freddie Gray in Baltimore. He died after a so-called rough ride in a police van through the city. Laquan McDonald shot to death by officers in Chicago. Lost on no one the fact that all this was taking place during the leadership of America's first African-American president.
If our society really wanted to solve the problem, we could. It's just it would require everybody saying this is important, this is significant. And that we don't just pay attention to these communities when a CVS burns. And we don't just pay attention when a young man gets shot.
Another challenge for him, the spiralling epidemic of gun violence. One of the worst incidents in 2015, the June attack on the historic AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, a key landmark in America's civil rights struggle.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound
President Obama led the nation in mourning, a role he took on time and again after mass shootings all over the country, but not the legislative action he demanded to bring about meaningful gun control.
At some point, we as a country will have to reckon with the fact that this type of mass violence does not happen in other advanced countries.
After more than 50 years, 2015 saw the reinstating of diplomatic relations between the US and Cuba, with the reopening of embassies in both countries.
A year ago, it might have seemed impossible that the United States would once again be raising our flag over an embassy in Havana. This is what change looks like.
Change in 2015 also looked like this. Celebrations on the steps of the Supreme Court after its justices backed marriage equality for all couples, regardless of their sexual orientation. And in 2016, change will come in the form of a new president. The Republican field remains crowded, but a surprise frontrunner's emerged, billionaire Donald Trump, who's courted controversy from the start.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
On the Democratic side, the frontrunner is former Secretary of State and First Lady Hillary Clinton.
I'm running for president. Well, I may not be the youngest candidate in this race, but I will be the youngest woman president in the history of the United States.
Whoever wins in 2016, they're likely to be facing the same foreign policy challenges as the current president. Among them, how best to defeat the extremists of Islamic State. And as 2015 comes to a close, that's something that Barack Obama will be pondering, along with how best to cement his legacy as he enters his final year in office. Kate Fisher, SABC News, Washington.
We've done a wrap of Africa, a wrap of the US, and now to Europe. Throughout 2015, Europe has been tackling a refugee and a migrant crisis. Roughly 1 million people have fled to this continent over the past 12 months, and the wave of asylum seekers has thrown the concept of European solidarity into question, with many Eastern EU member states saying that the external border should be closed.
Throughout 2015, Europe has been tackling a refugee and migrant crisis. Roughly 1 million people have fled to this continent over the past 12 months. And the wave of asylum seekers has thrown the concept of European solidarity into question, with many Eastern EU member states saying the external border of the EU should be closed.
The picture that has come to symbolise the horrors of the crisis is that of a small Kurdish boy's lifeless body washed up on a Turkish beach. The flimsy boat his family were using to cross into Greece capsized, but he was only one of around 2,500 people known to have drowned making such a crossing.
I felt it was our moral duty to concentrate also on our responsibility as Europeans to prevent this kind of tragedies to happen again and again. The main issue here is to build together a common sense of European responsibility.
The UN predicts 3 million people will apply for asylum in the EU before the end of 2017. But an EU relocation programme has so far only moved just a few hundred refugees, instead of the 160,000 it plans to distribute among member countries out of Italy and Greece. Greece has become the frontline entry point for the asylum seekers, but in 2015 the country nearly exited the single currency euro, as its newly elected left-wing government tried to renegotiate Greece's debt deals with the EU.
Mario Draghi, the president of the European Central Bank, said quite correctly that for the euro to succeed anywhere, it must succeed everywhere. We think he's absolutely spot on.
Greece was forced to accept austerity measures by the EU. In November, terror attacks struck the French capital, Paris. 130 people died as 8 men stormed bars, cafes and a music venue, shooting indiscriminately before using suicide belts to blow themselves up. The Islamic State claims responsibility.
The question of the circulation of foreign fighters, which is a top security issue for Europe, inevitably comes into the question of asylum policy and migration and mobility policy more generally. And of course, this also has political resonance. So this is something that policymakers are going to have to parse very, very carefully, how to be more effective on the security side and still have a policy that works with regard to migration.
2015 will also be remembered as the year South Africa locked horns with the International Criminal Court over the attendance of Sudan's ICC-indicted President Omar al-Bashir to an AU summit in Johannesburg. The court says South Africa should have arrested him.
We don't want to ever, as South Africa, after having been part of the formation and the drafters of the Rome Statutes, to ever be asked to choose between ICC and our Pan-African agenda. We think that would be asking for too much.
In 2016, the court awaits a response from South Africa about what exactly happened with President al-Bashir.
2015 has been a year of crises here in Europe, and the coming year looks set to be the same. The refugee crisis has revealed growing divisions between European countries, which are only set to become deeper in 2016. Jack Parrick, SABC News, Brussels.
Germany was also in the middle of the action, playing a key role in everything from the refugee influx to the Greek debt crisis. The country's largest automaker was also rocked by the biggest scandal in its history. SABC's Iris Spitzer reports from Berlin.
Over 1 million people made the journey to Europe this year, over land and across the sea. For the majority, Germany was their destination. In September, Chancellor Angela Merkel temporarily opened the country's borders, paving the way for the arrival of hundreds of thousands more Syrians. The move won her accolades around the world.
Let me simply say that Germany is a strong country, and our intention must be to say we have achieved so much. We will manage this. We will manage this, and where there is an obstacle, we have to overcome it.
While 2015 was a good year for the Chancellor, it was certainly not a good year for her country's largest car maker. In October, Volkswagen was forced to admit that it had installed devices designed to cheat emissions tests in up to 11 million vehicles worldwide. A massive recall is underway, and the company remains in damage control mode.
Through it, we have lost trust with our clients, with investors and with our employees, but also in politics and among the public. Winning back trust is our top priority and our top challenge.
Another German company was involved in a shocking human tragedy in 2015. In April, a Germanwings airplane crashed in the French Alps, killing all 150 people on board. It was then revealed that the plane's co-pilot had intentionally downed the plane for reasons that may never be fully understood. The past year also saw Germany deepen its involvement in the global fight against ISIS after November's deadly attacks in Paris.
France has asked us for help, and today we discussed how we can accommodate this demand for help. What we can do above all is in 3 parts: protection, the important task of gathering information, and logistics.
Berlin has made it clear, however, that they won't be conducting airstrikes themselves. 2016 could see some big changes here in Germany, though. With its asylum system overwhelmed, Angela Merkel has called for a tangible reduction in the number of refugees and asked her European partners to do more to shoulder the burden. Iris Spitzer, SABC News, Berlin.
As stories are broken around the world, SABC makes sure you do not miss out. As the stories unfold throughout the day, News at 8 updates all newsworthy stories worldwide. Globally, we are there. Locally, we leave no story untold. Make a date with News at 8 every Saturday and Sunday on SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
It's 1100 hours Central Africa time on this Wednesday, the 23rd of December 2015. Do you know? 2 days. That's all you got before Christmas. This is Newsroom, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the final hour. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock, and you have to stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. We're also asking you a question this morning. For today, we focus on King Dalindyebo, who's expected to hand himself over to a correctional centre to begin his 12-year jail term. We're asking, should the king go to jail or not? You can post your comments on our Twitter page at SABC Newsroom. But first, let's take a look at all your news headlines. Traditional leadership in the Eastern Cape province has applied for presidential pardon for the Abatembu king, Bulekaya Dalindyebo. Nigeria plans to revive its struggling economy by increasing capital expenditure. And the International Organization for Migration says the number of migrant deaths has increased to shocking proportions this year. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Marumo Kagana what's happening on the sports front.
Good morning, sir. As you've known now that the FIFA Ballon d'Or 2015 last three players have been announced. That's Lionel Messi, Neymar, and Ronaldo. Mm-hmm. Who's your money on?
Well, it's going to be Neymar.
Neymar?
Yes.
For me,
for a change.
I'll go with Messi.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's going to be Messi perhaps again.
Thanks, Elvis. Let's now take a look at stories making headlines in the world of sports. A leading official at the World Athletics Federation, Nick Davis, to step aside while an ethics committee investigates emails he had sent regarding Russian doping ahead of the 2013 World Championships in Moscow, Russia. And Leicester City to finish at the top of the English Premier League table at Christmas for the first time in the club's 131 year of existence. We'll have more on this and other stories making headlines in the world of sports later on during the Sports Bulletin.
Thank you, Marumo. He will be back a little bit later with more, but right now, top story this hour. Traditional leadership in the Eastern Cape province has applied for a presidential pardon for the Abatembu king, Bulekaya Dalindyebo. Earlier this month, the Constitutional Court dismissed the king's appeal against his 12-year jail sentence. King Bulekaya is expected to start his jail term today. A warrant of arrest will be issued against him if he fails to hand himself over to the Mthatha Maximum Correctional Centre. The Correctional Services in Eastern Cape says it does not know what time the Abatembu king, Bulekaya Dalindyebo, will report at the Wellington Maximum Prison at Mthatha. This after his final appeal to the Constitutional Court failed earlier this month. The king was found guilty in 2013 for crimes committed against his subjects in 1995 and 1996. These included arson, kidnapping, and defeating the ends of justice. The Justice Department has indicated that the king will be afforded no special treatment when he begins his sentence today and will be treated like all other inmates. Now, for more on the story, we are joined on the line by Chief Mwelo Nkunyana, the Eastern Cape's Contralesa chairperson from Mthatha. Chief, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Morning, sir, and morning to all your listeners. Thank you very much for having me again.
Now, it has been reported, Chief, this morning that you have sent a letter to the presidency requesting a pardon for King Dalindyebo. What are you actually asking for in this letter?
In this letter, we are actually asking His Excellency the President to exercise his constitutional power to pardon His Majesty the King.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you not in a way asking for preferential treatment for the king?
You may say so, but in the letter that we submitted to the office of our president, we did set up certain issues that we feel justify the president to exercise his constitutional power. We're saying so because, as we indicated earlier on, we respect the laws of this country, we respect the decision of the judiciary, and but in our view, there are circumstances, compelling circumstances that really militates against the incarceration of a reigning king in this country. And I've just heard you then say the prison authorities, they said they will treat His Majesty the King like all the ordinary prisoners. And no doubt, because of course, I doubt that there is any prison in this country that is equipped and capable of actually accepting a king. Remember, correctional centers are there to really correct the offenders so that they can be treated, they can be rehabilitated. Clearly, the statement suggests that they don't have any facility, they don't even have people that they could be able to really accept and accommodate a king so that that king could be rehabilitated. It is on that basis and that I think we feel that our case is being really made stronger by this submission from the correctional services, as I said to you.
Now, Chief, you did mention that in the letter you have put through some issues that indicate why you should not go to jail. What are the arguments that you are putting forward?
As I indicated before, and I'll reiterate now, we would like our president to consider this first. We don't want our president to learn about this thing from the media. I think that will really weaken our case. Hence, we said that the media should actually await should the president want to divulge the reasons to the public later on. But for now, as far as we are concerned, it is confidential memorandum, which is very urgent for consideration for our president.
Mm-hmm. Are you expecting any positive response from the government soon?
Indeed, yes. We would expect, of course, a positive result. We did apply our minds. We did make our own submission. I think we have made a compelling case and for the president really to exercise his executive powers vested in him in terms of the Constitution.
The status quo in relation to the king handing himself over to the prison authorities today, where do we stand? Do you know?
We don't know. We hope that at least there will be some intervention soon before that happens, because we feel that if that happens, really it will be a historical fact that some of us will regret.
Now, Chief, is there perhaps also, because we heard rumblings about this, and maybe you can help us in this assessment, that the king might have a proxy that would go in his place to jail? Is that still perhaps an issue that you might consider?
Not at all. We know that the prison authorities will never accept anybody except the person in the name of King Sabataran with the ID. It will be illegal for them anyway to accept anybody else. Hence, therefore, our view is that let's respect the law and let our child also respect our Constitution. And our last hope is our president to exercise his executive power.
So thank you so much.
If the president then decides that is not agreeing with our submission, then naturally the law will have to follow its own course, and then we'll have to persuade him not to go to prison. But the plan B, as I indicated, I don't think that there's any prison in this country that can accept, can accommodate a king of a nation like him. But if then that is the case, we would really appeal to the Department of Correctional Services, at least to provide him with some house to accommodate him, and they must also assure us that there will be some necessary infrastructure to make sure that the king will be able to be rehabilitated.
Thank you so much for your time, Chief Mwelo Nokonyana. He's the Eastern Cape Contra Lesser Chairperson. Thank you so much for joining us. Meanwhile, the Justice Department spokesperson Mthunzi Maga says in terms of the Correctional Services Act, no one should receive preferential treatment. Therefore, King Dali Nyebo will be treated as such.
In terms of the Correctional Services Act, there is a sentence plan for every inmate, and depending on the category that he falls under. So there will never be any special treatment for anyone who comes to our correctional centers.
Now move on to another story in the Northern Cape. Nature conservation representatives are expected to visit a Christiana farmer today who is accused of mistreating animals on his farm. His neighbour says that he is keeping hundreds of game but does not feed them, and many have already died from hunger. Some organisations have already taken it upon themselves to feed the animals by throwing fodder over the fence, as the owner of the farm refuses to open the gates. Now, for more on the story, let's now cross to our reporter Puleng Mudupi to give us the latest there in Christiana. In fact, we spoke to her early. Let's see if we can get that story. Well, Puleng, are you there? Puleng Mudupi, can you hear me?
Yes, I am here.
Yes, just give us the latest now.
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Yes, we are still here at the farm. Wade said that the animals are being neglected. As you can see behind me, there are some of the animals here. They don't have anything to eat. So there's an organization that's like has gone out of its way to make sure that they supply fodder to the animals. So I have here the owner of the organization who's going to tell us more about what is it that they are doing to help out the animals here.
Firstly, just a correction. I'm just one of the coordinators of Boere in Nood. As you can see behind me, there's no food on the fields. At the moment, we've got about 6 bales of fodder left that our organization was getting through a donation from Meneer Johan Boota from Oudtshoorn. I'm going to open my heart and I'm going to ask the South African public, farmers, business people, corporations, our normal public, please help us to help the animals. We can look after ourselves, but our animals can't look after ourselves. As you see, as we're standing here, the degrees are 41 at the moment, and the animals got really nothing behind us. You can see it's like only sand. And I'm going to plead out of my heart, please support Boere in Nood so that we can support the game behind us. All the feed we'll get will be canalized by our organization Boere in Nood towards the Farm Diamond. We will take hands again with Conrad de Beer, the neighbor, that will supply every day the food over the fence for the game that's been neglected.
Now, Kobus, can you please now explain what's the next step that you're going to take now to ensure that the animals continue to get proper attention, since you are saying there's only 6 bags of fodder left?
That's correct. There's only 6 bags of fodder left, and that will last us up till Monday. If we don't get any donations by Monday, I really don't know what we will do. But from Boere in Nood side, I think we will make a plan. But we need to ask the public, help us. And then I can just say that Nature Conservation was here. The guys is on leave, but they make an effort to attending to the case for us today. They're in contact with Wildlife South Africa as well as the Department of Horticulture. The Horticulture Director will be back on the 26th. He's cutting short his holiday to assist us on this specific case.
Now, in terms of the farmer himself, what is it that's going to be done?
If the farmer don't comply, the law will take his way, and within a mark time of 4 weeks, the animals will be removed to other game farms, other farmers that's willing to help us and to feed it and to look after their game. Because it's really heartbroken to see a guy got more than 200 game on a farm that's not equipped to carry that amount of game.
Like Kobus is saying now, at the moment, they only have about 6 bags of fodder left, and then the food will last up until Monday. So they don't have anything basically to feed the animals by next week. The organization is now appealing to the public to assist in terms of donating feed for the animals, because as we can see here, the farm is basically bare. The animals don't have anything to eat. We have the animals such as the buffalo and the bugs, and they don't have anything to eat. So the organization is now appealing to the public to help them. Back to studio.
Thank you, Puleng Mudupi, there in the Northern Cape. A dire situation there. They're calling on you, the public, to assist Boere in Noord in the Northern Cape there. You can look them up on the website and find out where they are. And please see if you can assist them. Boere in Noord in the Northern Cape, the farmers there. Let's now move further afield. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari says his government plans to revive a struggling economy by tripling capital expenditure. Africa's biggest economy expects its budget deficit to double to 2.2 trillion naira in 2016.
Buhari told the parliament that Nigeria will borrow as much as 900 billion naira abroad to fund the deficit, which equals to 2.16% of GDP. Nigeria's economy has been hammered by a plunge in oil prices, which has weakened the naira. It's also delayed the payments of civil servants and forced companies to fire thousands of staff. Buhari highlighted that the West African nation expects revenues of around 3.9 trillion naira next year. 820 billion naira will come from key oil revenues. Another major focus will be the improvement of tax collection and non-oil industries such as agriculture and mining.
Our deficit will be financed by a combination of domestic borrowing of 984 billion naira and foreign borrowing of 900 billion naira, totaling 1.84 billion naira. Over the medium term, we expect to increase revenues and reduce overheads to bring the fiscal deficit down to 1.3% of GDP by 2018.
Despite the depressed oil prices, Buhari is adamant that Nigeria's economy will grow by 4.4% next year. He reiterated that the budget is based on an oil price of $38 a barrel. Oil production will be expected to be 2.2 million barrels a day.
We believe that this budget, while helping industry, commerce and investment to pick up, will, as a matter of urgency, address the immediate problems of youth unemployment and the terrible living conditions of the extremely poor and vulnerable Nigerians.
Buhari got elected in March on a campaign to root out graft and mismanagement, which have left most people in poverty. Meanwhile, the central bank governor sent a strong warning that the economy might slip into recession unless a stimulus is brought underway.
Now let's go back to our question that we're asking you today. Should the King, Bulukai Ndalinyebo, go to jail? Let us know on your Facebook page, on our Twitter page, at SABC Newsroom. And we'll read your comments a little bit later in the program. Meanwhile, the Justice Department spokesperson, Mthunzi Maga, says that the ministry has received the petition and the minister will review it and make his decision, but the bail condition still stands. He now joins us on the line to discuss this. A very good morning, Mr. Maga, and welcome.
Good day, Elvis, and good morning to your listeners.
Can you just confirm for us if indeed the ministry has received the petition and are you considering it?
Yeah, that's correct. This morning we received a petition from a Mr. Yasmin Omar, who claims to be an attorney representing King Ndalinyebo. But one of the reasons that he cites to ask minister to direct a reopening of the case is that one of the assessors had passed on, and therefore the judge should not have continued with the matter, and that customary law was ignored. The minister has to assess that and see if there's merit to their argument so that he can direct the court in terms of Section 327 of the Criminal Procedure Act. But I need to mention, Elvis, that the submission of the petition to the minister has no bearing on the bail conditions that were set by the Mthatha High Court, because they are an order of court and they have not been varied, and therefore the king must present himself to the head of Mthatha Correctional Center, which is called Wellington Prison, today. If he fails to do that, law enforcement are empowered to obtain a committal warrant and apprehend him and cause him to start serving his sentence.
What is the merit of this particular submission, and are the reasons valid?
Look, I don't want to be preemptive to what the minister will be considering. I think it's unfair on my part, but it's very unprecedented. And minister is the one to make a determination if there's merit to it, after which he will then direct the court to hear the matter.
Mm-hmm. But what options does the department have after receiving such a petition?
The minister, not the department, Elvis. This should be clarified. The act talks of the minister, not the department.
Mm-hmm.
So the minister is the political head of the department, and is the minister responsible for the administration of justice as a cabinet member. Now he has to look at the affidavit that has been submitted and identify if there are valid grounds upon which he is empowered to direct the court to hear the matter. Now, in terms of Section 327 of the Criminal Procedure Act, only where there is new evidence that was not available during trial that may affect the conviction of the king would there be a necessity for the minister to direct as such. In the absence of that, the minister cannot do anything. But I don't want to preempt what the minister will be considering and deciding on.
Mm-hmm. We spoke to Chief Mvelo Nkunyana from Mthatha a little bit earlier, from Controlesa, and he indicated that if the king fails in his bid and he does go to jail, that the correctional services should provide special accommodation for the king. Would you consider that as the department?
There can never be a special condition or preferential treatment for an inmate. Once he is admitted, there will be an assessment report compiled by our officials upon admission. That assessment report will determine what category the king will fall under. And then the needs based on that assessment will determine how he is to be kept, depending on the category of an inmate he is in. He will not receive any special treatment. That's how correctional services work. That's how incarceration policy has been crafted.
Advocate, what will happen should the king fail to hand himself over by midnight tonight?
I've already indicated that failure to do so will be in violation of a bail condition that was set by the court, and therefore law enforcement must obtain a committal warrant from the registrar of the High Court and cause him to serve his sentence upon apprehending him.
Advocate, thank you so much for your time. That was Advocate Mthunzi Maga on the line to us, stating the case of the department very clearly. So we're waiting with bated breath, and we're asking you the question: do you think that the king should go to jail? Let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. You can also do so via Facebook. Well, we'll take a break and we'll be right back after that.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top-quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
In December 2014, South African-born comedian Trevor Noah became a recurring contributor on an American show called The Daily Show. A year later, March 2015, Comedy Central announced that Noah would succeed Jon Stewart as the host of The Daily Show. His tenure began on the 28th of September 2015. Noah moved to the United States in 2011. In January 2012, he became the first South African stand-up comedian to appear on the American show called The Tonight Show. In May 2013, he became the first to appear on The Late Show with David Letterman, South African that is. Noah starred in a one-man comedy show, Trevor Noah, The Racist, which was based on his similarly titled South African special, That's Racist. In September, Noah was the roast master in a Comedy Central roast of South African Afrikaans singer Steve Hofmeyer, I beg your pardon. In 2013, he performed the comedy special Trevor Noah, African American, which is now available on DVD and digital platforms.
Before we get started, I just wanted to say a few things. First of all, this is surreal for me. I'm not going to lie. Growing up in the dusty streets of South Africa, I never dreamed that I would one day have, well, two things, really. An indoor toilet and a job as host of The Daily Show. And now I have both. And I'm quite comfortable with one of them. So, but the truth is, now I'm in the chair, and I can only assume that this is as strange for you as it is for me. Jon Stewart was more than just a late-night host. He was often our voice, our refuge, and in many ways, our political dad. And it's weird, because Dad has left. And now it feels like the family has a new stepdad. And he's black.
Affectionately referred to as Africa's greatest or grandest gathering, the Cape Town International Jazz Festival is the largest music event in sub-Saharan Africa. That festival, now preparing for its 17th year, is an annual event famous for delivering a star-studded lineup. This proudly South African-produced event is hosted at the Cape Town International Convention Centre each year on the last weekend of March or the first weekend of April. This year, we were joined in studio by the CEO of ESPN Africa, Billy Domingo, and performer Tribute Birdie Mboweni. Now, they gave us a glimpse of what to expect at this year's festival.
I think it's going to be a lot more fun because we included a Sunday in the township called Ikapa Jazz. So it's going to be a long week of being there. I think it's going to be exciting.
Birdie, I love the name, being a golfer, I'm always looking out for birdies.
Boy.
That's the one thing. But tell me, my dear, what does it mean for you to perform at this world-class festival? Maybe I can get your Hunt to play us a little bit of backing sound of your performance a little bit earlier while we talk about it. But what does it mean?
It's very exciting for me. And I mean, it's called Africa's grandest gathering. It's the fourth biggest stage in the world. And, 6 months into the release of my debut album, and I get to be booked for that stage. It's me showcasing my art and my music to the world, really, because, people from the world over come for the jazz. So, yeah, very excited about it.
Well, you've got such a wonderful sound. Let's just listen to it for 30 seconds.
Well, what a wonderful performance there. Well, let's see if we can get an update on that story. As cross-door reporter Zimkita Mkinana, who is outside the Wellington prison in Mthatha, where King Bulakaya Dalinyebo is expected to walk in to start his 12-year sentence. Zimkita, very good morning to you once again. Still no sign of the king?
The king has still not come to Wellington prison. We've been here since the early hours of this morning, waiting for him to make his way to Wellington prison. But what I can tell you is that the Department of Justice has acknowledged receiving the petition against the Minister of Justice for a retrial on the matter and to consider traditional law aspects which were not taken into consideration when this case was heard before court. However, the department has emphasized that receiving the petition doesn't mean that it changes the bail conditions of the king. And one of those conditions is that by the 23rd of December, he needs to surrender himself to the police so that he can begin his 12-year sentence. So as things stand now, the king is adamant on his side that given the petition that he submitted through the lawyers of the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution, he will not come and surrender himself here. And also, a presidential pardon submission by Contralesa in the province to the Office of the Presidency is another issue that the King's spokesperson is mentioning as a reason why he will not come here today. But we're still waiting to see what is going to happen, as Justice Department is saying that he should come here today.
Zimkita, thank you so much for that update. That's our reporter Zimkita Mkinana in the Eastern Cape, waiting for the king. That sounds like a movie. But we'll take a break, and Marumo Kakana will be back with your sports news after that.
Health Talk looks into the increase of suicide and symptoms leading to suicide.
The death wish grows when you go into depression after a lot of stress.
And often when we talk about suicide, we don't talk about a person wanting to stop living, but rather wanting to stop living in pain.
After losing everything in life that lead you to no options but suicide.
I had that spirit of fear in me to say, don't even face tomorrow.
After being overwhelmed with stress and trauma, it becomes difficult to have self-control.
People learning tools and skills that will practically enable them to meet these challenges.
In trying times, never be alone. Reach out for help to a better solution.
Support should be done by a counsellor or psychologist where you're able to speak about how you're feeling in a safe, accepting, non-judgmental space.
For all your health tips, join Dr. Silo Mutawuni every Saturday from 9 till 10.
Welcome back. Let's give you your concluding sports bulletin. The Chief of Staff of the International Association of Athletics Federation, Nick Davis, will reportedly step aside from his role to allow an ethics committee to investigate emails he reportedly sent regarding Russian doping ahead of the 2013 World Championships in Moscow, Russia. Earlier in the week, an email sent by Davis to Papa Masata Diak, the son of former IAAF President Lamine Diak, discussing a special dossier was leaked. The email is reported to be discussing what could be prepared to limit the impact of a series of positive tests by Russian athletes. The report is also said to be criticizing the governing body for what the email says is a lack of intervention by the IAAF to the problem. Though the extent of Russia doping is now out in the open, the IAAF were seemingly fighting to keep a lead on it 2 years ago. The email, which was sent in July of 2013, a month before the Moscow World Championships, also suggested that CSM, the sport marketing firm chaired by IAAF President Sebastian Coe, could be used as part of an unofficial PR campaign to fend off negative stories in the British media. At odds of 1,000 to 1, many did not bet that Leicester City would be at the top of the English Premier League table at Christmas. For the first time in their club's 131 years of existence, they have managed to achieve that feat by manager Claudio Ranieri is playing down the title talk. City are away to Liverpool on Boxing Day, and Ranieri says that the team will rely on their endurance to maintain their 10-match unbeaten streak.
All the world are speaking about you. Play. Continue to play how you are doing. You can win, you can lose, it's okay. Sooner or later, I hope more later, but we lose a match. That is normal. But we must continue to play and to work hard. We know very well our stamina is good, and until our stamina is good, we can continue to fight against everybody.
A number of former international sports stars passed away in 2015, and most noticeable are the death of former South African cricket captain Clive Rice and All Blacks superstar John Alomu, while the passing on of Shoes Moshoebu also shocked South Africans.
Former Proteas captain Clive Rice led the national team on their return from isolation. Then at the age of 42, Rice captained the team on their first tour to India in 1991. However, he was left out of the 1992 World Cup squad and did not play for his country again. His first-class career comprised of 482 matches. The all-rounder scored just over 26,000 runs. He took 930 wickets between 1969 and 1994. After retirement, Rice continued to be active in cricket as a coach. Shoes Moshoebu made his name at Giant Blackpool, making 105 appearances. His move to Kaizer Chiefs was short-lived as he moved to Turkey mid-season after 14 games. Moshoebu became a household name in Turkey in his 10-year stay there. He made his debut for Bafana Bafana in 1993, scoring on debut against Botswana. The midfield maestro represented his country on 73 occasions. He was one of the influential players of the team that won the 1996 Africa Cup of Nations and was second top scorer with 4 goals. 2 years later, he formed part of the team that played at the 1998 FIFA World Cup in France. The Absa Premiership suffered the death of Free State star striker Richard Henekane. The Kimberley-born striker died in a car crash near Bethlehem. His best appearances in the PSL was during his time with Golden Arrows. Henekane moved to Mamelodi Sundowns but did not get enough game time and finally moved to Free State Stars, where he made 18 appearances and scoring 8 goals. All Black superstar John Alomu suddenly died on November 18. The winger had been suffering from kidney disorder since 1995. In 2003, it was reported that he was on dialysis 3 times a week, putting his career on hold. He made a comeback to the sport after undergoing a kidney transplant in 2005 and finally retired from professional rugby in 2007. Lomo was the youngest ever All Black, making his debut at the age of 19. He ended his international career with 63 caps, scoring 37 tries. The All Black is the joint Rugby World Cup all-time top try scorer with 15 tries, a record he shares with Springbok Brian Habana. Another former All Black flanker, Jerry Collins, and his wife died in a car crash in France. The couple was traveling in a car with their 3-month-old daughter when they collided with a bus. Collins won 48 caps for New Zealand. He captained the All Blacks for 1 test against Argentina and 2 games against Portugal and Romania in the 2007 Rugby World Cup. The flanker also featured in the New Zealand side that thrashed the British and Irish Lions in 2005. The Bantu SABC News.
And that's a wrap from the sports desk. Up next is your continental weather forecast.
Now, we look back a little bit earlier on Trevor Noah and the strides that he's made. Now, he has set the bar very high for local comedians. Now, up-and-coming comedians Khotso Halela and Teboho Tewa, I beg your pardon, are two of the best underground comedians the country has to offer. The two youngsters are joining me here in studio to talk about what drives them and what they will be up to over the festive season. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, let's start with the first question, really, that people will normally ask you. Why did you choose comedy?
I don't think we chose comedy. I think you chose me.
Comedy chose you, yeah?
Comedy chose us.
How did it happen, though?
I started about 3 years ago. I was working as a public speaker, and my boss sort of dragged me to a comedy bar, and he said, look, you're really funny, and I think I would hate to lose you at the office, but I think this is really what you should be doing. And yeah, I haven't looked back since.
Yeah. And yourself?
He found me. I was minding my own business. He found me. He's like, hey, I think you're really funny. I'm going to give you like a 5-minute set.
Yes.
And that's it. I did it, and the people liked me, and I've been doing it since.
Now, it's all good and well to start off a comedy, but there must be something that drives you really, because it's a grueling job, isn't it?
It is quite grueling. You know, when you have to be funny on demand, it's very tough on you. And the way we set our material up is we're always trying to stay relevant and informative. So we're always looking for a different angle. We're always looking for a fresh new angle. Yeah.
Ultimate goals in terms of where you're going to with comedy?
The ultimate goal right now is Trevor Noah.
Yes? That is an ultimate goal, isn't it?
Go as big, going to go as far as Trevor Noah. I think that's the ultimate goal right now.
But it all takes hard work and a lot of passion for the job, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. It really, really does. Like I said, on some mornings you're not feeling funny, but you have to show up to the office like everyone else, and you have to put in your hours. And yeah, it's starting to pay off. Really is.
Now, material is something that some people get writer's block, and you can't get further than that. But where do you get your material from? Let's start off with you two.
Most of my material is from my family life. I talk about my grandmother quite a bit. But other than that, the news. As a South African who's got their pulse on current affairs, there's a ton of material out there. I mean, our politicians just sort of hand it to us on a silver platter, so they make it easy.
Yes?
For me, my material is mostly from my niece and from my job. Aside from comedy, I'm a paramedic, so I see some pretty awesome stuff, and it helps to talk about it on stage.
Now, Teboho, you will give us a performance this morning. So if you can maybe go set up there quickly on the other side of the room, and then we can carry on with this conversation in the meantime with Khotso. Khotso, now, so currently, where are you guys performing?
Right now, we're doing shows at Emerald Sports Bar in Van der Bijl Park. We have shows every Tuesday. And every Wednesday we have shows at Intersections. That's in Sebokeng in the Val Triangle on Mshweshwe Street. That's every Wednesday. And then
in the intersection in the street. How does that happen?
Not in the street. It's just that the bar is in the corner, where that famous intersection is. So yeah, that's how the name came up.
And people enjoying you?
Yeah, people are enjoying us.
Yes. Festive season is now, where people can. Are you still going to be at Emerald?
For now, as far as Intersections, we're on a break. But then Emerald, we're still going on every Tuesday. Aside from that, it's shows where we get invited by other comedians to go perform.
Emerald, of course, in Vereniging.
In Vereniging,
so
Van der Bijl Park.
That's where people can see you.
That's where people can see us.
All right, now, the man standing by, Khotso, take it away.
Okay, so I want to really just tell you guys a little bit about my grandmother, like I said earlier. Being someone who was raised by my grandmother, it was quite difficult. We recycled a lot. Sometimes we recycled too much. In the middle of summer, you'd find a Tupperware container that's filled with absolutely all the delicious things that you don't want to have in summer. Sometimes you'd find it filled with soup, but you expect that from a Tupperware container. What I was never ready for is finding frozen soup inside my Gino Ginelli container. That makes it quite difficult. And growing up with my grandmother beside me, I learned a very, very interesting thing. I learned that we all count so differently. I was helping my grandmother pick up very heavy pots, those 3-footed pots that we use for mekete, and my grandmother says to me, okay, I'm going to count for you. You need to lift when I count. And I say, okay, so on 3. And she says, no, not on 3, on the second 2. And I said to myself, what is the second 2? And she says, hold that side. And I grab the side, and she goes, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then she lifts, And I realized when I went to an Afrikaans school that I learned athletics differently from everyone as well. Whenever people start a race, it's always on your marks, get set, go. The way my grandmother did it was on your marks, get set, ready, steady, fire, and then go. And I always ask myself, why don't we go on fire like everyone else? You know, but I love my grandmother to bits. I love her even more now that I've seen her will. Yeah, she's left me all her Tupperware containers, which is fantastic. Those things cost a fortune. Another person who was very dear to me was my uncle. My uncle was a taxi driver. My uncle was the smartest taxi driver I ever met. Whenever I was at the taxi rank, I'd be standing in the queue, afraid to go sit in front, and he'd say to me, you know, Tebo, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is counting change in the taxi. And whenever we'd find ourselves in a sticky situation with the change, you'd have someone sitting at the back screaming, driver, hakatola change. And my uncle would just adjust the rearview mirror. He'd look back and he'd say, ma'am, you need to have the change that you want to see in others. And whenever he'd pull up to the taxi rank, someone would say, driver, this is not where I'm supposed to be. This is not where I'm supposed to be. This is not my destination. And again, he would adjust his rearview mirror and he'd say, sir, life is really not about your destination. It's more about the journey. It's more about the journey. Okay, and I think that's
wonderful.
My I've been Tebotoa.
Kotso halela. I think I should said halala. In fact, that's Teboho Tewa. I beg your pardon, because we've got two comedians here in studio.
Are you recycling already?
I'm recycling already. You see, now I've got a Tupperware with me. Yeah? There we have it. That was the two comedians here in studio with us, Kotso Halala and Teboho Tewa, giving us their best. And you can go see them out in
for the Bay Park, Emerald.
The Emerald Casino. Go and check them out. Now, today we ask you a very important question. The king is on his long walk to jail. Should he go to jail? That's the question we pose to you. Here are some of your comments. Let's take a look. This one from Sontaga says, why not one is, in SABC News, why not? No one is above the law, so he must go to jail and serve his sentence, Letabahong in Rustenburg. This one from Professor says, nobody is above the law. Actually, there shouldn't even be a topic about Dalindyebo going to jail. He must just abide. I think it's going to be a tough walk. The king should be in jail, though it's an embarrassment to his subjects, says Yasin. This one from Oriel says, no, the king's place was never a prison. The chief was only observing protocol. This one from Sipo says, only in South Africa, where we arrest our own king. It's sad indeed, says Sipo. Now, those are all your comments. Now, thank you so much for contributing on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter page, but that's unfortunately all we have for you here today on Newsroom. Now, Marumo, that's how we close the show. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on Newsroom. From myself, Elvis Presslin.
And Marumo Kekana.
We'll be back then. Ciao for now. Arrivederci.
Media Monitor, your weekly media news review program.
It was squashed some few months back, but obviously this is something that is going to hang around Pravin until it is actually dealt with. If he didn't know, then he wasn't doing his job.
In it, she described how the man's hair was frozen, although the man has no hair.
Is anybody volunteering to go to jail for him? That is not how the law works.
This particular matter makes us really look like a serious banana republic.
Unpacking headlines and giving analysis on topical issues. Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.